I accused my wife of still loving her ex when she chose his name for our baby. The real reason made me ashamed. I, 34M, never thought I'd be posting here, but I need to get this off my chest and maybe get some outside perspective. My wife and I have been married for 5 years now. Our relationship has always been solid. We communicate well, respect each other's boundaries, and generally don't keep secrets. At least, that's what I thought until about 7 months ago when she dropped a bombshell that nearly derailed our marriage. She was 4 months pregnant with our first child, a boy. We were ecstatic. Both of us had always wanted kids, and after trying for almost a year, it finally happened. The pregnancy was going smoothly, and we were starting to discuss names. I had a few ideas, mostly family names from my side. My grandfather's name was at the top of my list. He practically raised me after my dad left, and I wanted to honor him. My wife seemed on board with this plan until one evening when we were having dinner. "I've been thinking about names," she said, pushing her food around her plate nervously. "What do you think about the name Tyler?" I'd never heard her mention this name before, but it wasn't terrible. "It's okay, I guess. Any particular reason?" She took a deep breath. "It was my ex's name. The one before I met you." I nearly choked on my drink. "You want to name our son after your ex-boyfriend?" "Yes," she said firmly, meeting my eyes. "And it's important to me. I'm not usually the jealous type, but this struck me as bizarre. Who names their child after an ex?" I asked her exactly that, trying to keep my voice level. "It's complicated," was all she would say at first, "but it means a lot to me." That night, I barely slept. My mind raced with possibilities, none of them good. Was she still in love with this guy? Had they been in contact behind my back? The next morning, I pressed her for more information, but she remained vague, only insisting that naming our son Tyler was the right thing to do. For the next few weeks, we were at an impasse. Every time the subject came up, she became emotional but wouldn't elaborate. Our usual open communication had hit a wall. Friends and family noticed the tension between us, but I was too embarrassed to explain the situation. My mother, sensing something was wrong, invited us over for dinner. During the meal, she asked about baby names, and my wife blurted out Tyler before I could say anything. When my mother asked why, my wife simply said it had special meaning to her. On the drive home, I couldn't hold back anymore. "This is our child, not just yours," I said. "I deserve to know why you're so set on naming him after someone you used to date." She pulled over to the side of the road, put the car in park, and turned to face me with tears in her eyes. "Tyler saved my life," she said quietly. "And he's dead now." I sat there, stunned into silence as she continued. Tyler had been her boyfriend during her sophomore year of college, about 7 years before we met. They'd dated for almost a year when he was diagnosed with leukemia. Despite the diagnosis, he remained optimistic, always telling her that he would beat it. She stayed by his side through the treatments, the hair loss, the weight loss, all of it. One night, they were driving back from a hospital appointment when a truck ran a red light and slammed into them. Tyler, despite being weakened from his treatments, managed to swerve at the last second so that his side of the car took the brunt of the impact. He died at the scene. My wife walked away with only minor injuries. The accident investigation showed that Tyler had turned the wheel deliberately, sacrificing himself to save her. The doctors later told her that his cancer had progressed further than they thought. He likely only had a few months left anyway. But that didn't change the fact that in that final moment, his instinct was to protect her. "He knew he was dying," she whispered. "But he still chose to save me." I never told anyone the full story because talking about it was too painful. For years, I blamed myself. If I had been driving instead of him, maybe he would have had those last few months. I reached across the console and took her hand. My anger had evaporated, replaced by a deep ache for what she'd been through. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" I asked gently. "Because I wanted to move forward with my life. When I met you, I finally felt ready to let go of the past. But now that we're having a son, it feels right to honor Tyler's memory. He's the reason I'm alive to have this baby in the first place." Over the next few days, I processed everything she'd told me. I did some discreet digging online and found old news articles about the accident, confirming her story. I also discovered that Tyler had been a volunteer at a children's hospital, spending time with kids undergoing cancer treatments like his own. By all accounts, he had been an extraordinary person. I called my wife from work and asked her to meet me for lunch. When she arrived, I handed her a small box. Inside was a custom-made keychain with the name Tyler engraved on it. "I've been thinking," I said as she looked up at me with questioning eyes. "Tyler is a great name for our son." She broke down crying right there in the restaurant, holding the keychain like it was the most precious thing in the world. A few patrons looked over, concerned, but she was smiling through her tears. "Are you sure?" she asked, wiping her eyes. "What about your grandfather's name? We can use it as a middle name," I suggested. "Tyler James. It has a nice ring to it." From that point on, things changed between us. My wife opened up more about her past, sharing stories about Tyler that she had kept bottled up for years. Some were funny, others heartbreaking, but I listened to all of them. Each one helped me understand my wife better, her resilience, her capacity for love, even her occasional melancholy on certain anniversaries I'd never fully comprehended before. When our son was born 2 months later, I was the one who filled out the birth certificate, Tyler James. My wife cried when she saw it, but these were healing tears. We've been adjusting to life as new parents for the past month now. Last weekend, we took baby Tyler to visit my grandfather, his namesake. As I watched my 82-year-old grandfather hold my son, I felt a profound sense of connection across generations. Later, I told him the full story behind Tyler's first name. He listened intently, then nodded with approval. "That young man sounds like he had the kind of character worth remembering," he said. "Your boy has big shoes to fill, but with you two as parents, I think he'll manage just fine." Yesterday, we received a package in the mail. It was from Tyler's parents. My wife had reached out to them after our son was born. Inside was a handmade baby blanket and a letter that left both of us in tears. They wrote about how much it meant to them that their son's memory would live on in our child, and how they'd love to meet him someday, if we were comfortable with that. We're planning to visit them next month. My wife is nervous but excited. She says it feels like bringing her past and present together in a way that honors everyone involved. I won't pretend it was an easy journey to get here. There were moments when my jealousy and confusion nearly got the better of me. But I'm glad I listened and tried to understand before letting those emotions rule my actions. Our son may carry the name of a man I never met, but he's teaching me something important about love. Sometimes it extends beyond what we can see or touch in the present moment. Sometimes it connects us to people we've lost and to stories that began long before we entered the picture. When I look at my son now, I don't see my wife's ex. I see our future. I see a child who, I hope, will inherit the best qualities of everyone who came before him. My grandfather's wisdom, his mother's strength, and yes, even the selflessness of the man he's named after. So if you're reading this and judging my wife for wanting to name our child after her ex, I hope you'll reconsider. Sometimes the simplest explanation isn't the right one. Sometimes there are depths to people's choices that we can't understand until we're willing to dive beneath the surface. Tyler is asleep in my arms as I type this with one hand. He'll never meet his namesake, but I promise to tell him the story when he's old enough to understand it. And I'll make sure he knows that he's named after a hero. Not because I'm insecure or my wife couldn't let go of the past, but because some people deserve to be remembered. Edit. Wow, I didn't expect this post to get so much attention. Thank you all for the kind comments and awards. To address a few common questions. 1. Yes, we did consider using Tyler as a middle name instead, but after learning the full story, I felt it deserved to be his first name. 2. No, I'm not worried about my wife still being in love with her ex. Their relationship was a long time ago, and the way she talks about him is with respect and gratitude, not romantic longing. 3. Several people have suggested that we start a small scholarship in Tyler's name at the children's hospital where he volunteered. We think this is a beautiful idea and are looking into it. 4. To the commenter who asked if I feel like I'm living in Tyler's shadow, no, I don't. My wife has made it abundantly clear that while Tyler will always be part of her past, I'm her present and future. I don't feel threatened by honoring someone who saved her life. Thanks again for all the support. It's helped affirm that we made the right decision, despite how unusual it might seem from the outside.